And Mr. Tully will go first on this first question. There at times seems to be a tenuous relationship between the county board and the sheriff's department. What are some actions or resolutions you see that need to be addressed regarding the working relationship between these two groups?
I think to start with, I respect everybody that's on the county board. It's an elected position. I vote for one of those positions as a taxpayer, just like many of you should. But I also think that some of the county board needs to respect the other elected positions. And in saying that, I mean that there's no one body, there's no county board that directs any other elected positions on what they should or should not do. If something is right, then that should be stood up for and fight for it. Now, you have to work together. The county board sets the budget for all departments, but you can do that in a fair and honest way by showing each other respect. You'll gain respect, and that working relationship just needs to be done. It does take time. A new candidate coming in is going to need to earn some respect, but also county board members need to give that person respect as well, no matter who it is. But those positions need to be, I do believe in term limits, and some of those folks on there, I respect the time they've spent on the county board, but I do think that I wish some of the younger generation would start getting involved in a lot of the elected positions, countywide, statewide, and I think you're seeing some of that. But if we could get younger folks involved in some of these things, we could have a good mix of ideas, experience from age, and some young ideas, and we just need to work together to make some of those things happen.
Mr. Olson.
I think I've enjoyed a pretty good working relationship with the county board and its members. County board are elected officials. Their function is to serve the people of this county, the people they represent. And it's my job as sheriff or whoever is elected sheriff to serve the people of this county. So I think we've worked together for the good of the people in my tenure as sheriff. Certainly, we do not disagree all the time. Certainly, what maybe are my priorities from a safety standpoint, county board members may disagree with because maybe because of the cost aspect or whatever. But I think there's nothing wrong with disagreement. And I think when you do disagree, you sit down and you tackle the problem, and in the end, you come up with a solution that's in the best interest for the people of this county. And I guess if the decision goes against you, well, tomorrow's the next day. Tomorrow's another day. You don't hold the grudge. You tackle the next issue with this, the same enthusiasm and with the county, the people of the county's best interest in mind. And I think if you do that, working together, I think, is the key. And like I say, I think we've enjoyed a good relationship, and I think that would continue in the future.
Okay, Mr. Simpson.
Where the county board is concerned, I think they're made up of a lot of talented and educated people. I don't always believe that they are getting all the information that they should. I also would prefer they look at situations with their own eyes, their own thought process, and not depend so heavily on the county attorney. I don't feel the county attorney is always working to give the proper messages back and forth between the sheriff and the county board. For that matter, perhaps all the elected offices. Where the county board is concerned, I fully expect to work with them completely, willingly, and amiably. If we should happen to have a disagreement, I plan on sitting down and working that disagreement out. I don't know it all. I don't know anybody who does, but I will try to get the answer. And with that said, I would just, like I said, hope that the county board would use their own eyes on some of these issues and give it their best judgments. Thank you.
Okay, our next question will be answered first by Mr. Olson. The news media has reported extensive overtime costs in the Sheriff's Department. Where are these costs accrued, and how can overtime be minimized or eliminated?
Historically, police agencies have high overtime, and it's due to court costs, it's due to calls coming in at the end of shift, it's due to numerous reasons, maybe transports, and we know what our overtime costs are going to be because we have an average for previous years, and that's how we set our overtime budget for the coming year. That being said, it currently, for example, just with the union contract benefits and the average number of vacation and so forth, we need 4.5 rotators to offset the overtime. We don't have that many rotators. So what we do is we try to plug in staff members. We might get by in the winter months. If there's 3 deputies on a shift and somebody calls in sick, we may try to get by with 2 deputies. So you look for ways to cut. The fact of the matter is that last year, generally if you look at my budget since I've been sheriff, I may be over budget in overtime, but I'll be under budget in wages. And what I'm talking about, there's a line item in the budget for wages. And for example, last year we were a position and a half short for the whole year. That comes out to about $120,000. And you can see in the overtime budget we're over budget in that area. So usually if we're over budget in overtime, we're under budget in that category, the line item of wages for the employees. So I think we've looked at ways here 3 years ago. Any overtime in the department, what we did is we completed a slip on it, and at the end of the month we sat down and looked at, hey, how can we improve this? And we did make a few changes here and there, but I think what we need to look at in the future is maybe another rotator position to offset some of that overtime. Thank you.
Mr. Sis.
In regard to overtime, yes, it's unavoidable in many instances, but I guess I'd have to look and see just how it's being scheduled with the deputies that we have. The sheriff mentioned maybe new positions or more positions to offset that. I just don't see that as a solution. I would rather see perhaps admin out and about filling some of those shifts. I understand we have a union contract, and I fully respect that. However, under management rights and the current economy being what it is, I think the unions are going to have to start looking at some way to police themselves where overtime and other such economic costs are considered. Now, one of the things I'm going to do to help eliminate some of the costs is I'm not taking the pay raise that's been approved for 2011 through the end of the term in 2014. That's just one thing I can do right now to help cut some costs. As the sheriff said, there will be overtime, but I'm going to look at those schedules and see if we can't get people to fill, maybe have to deny vacations or comp days off or what have you to avoid the overtime, work something else out. I think the union will work with me or with the county at least perhaps in the next contract to see some of that come to be. We just can't keep paying all this stuff, folks, because we just can't, and who's going to pay for it? Thank you.
And Mr. Tully.
Well, there's 2 types of overtime. One is scheduled, one is unscheduled. Unscheduled being emergency. Things are going to come up towards the end of somebody's shift, unforeseeable things that you would not want us to delay just in getting the next shift to you sooner. Or later, but not paying overtime. There's certain things that are going to need to be taken care of that are going to create overtime, without a doubt. Scheduled overtime is where you can be hurt dramatically. Being summoned into court. You have a set number of employees. Each employee knows, you'll know how many vacation days each employee is going to have coming to them the next year. And you have to use a formula to figure out how many of those shifts are going to create overtime. And then you can set your budget based on that tentatively. Nothing is for sure when figuring out the overtime, but you can do your best. There's certain things I think we can sit down with the union folks and transports. I understand that they're used as, can be obtained as overtime to the patrol deputies, but I think we could save ourselves some money, save some time, if we can use part-time folks more often so that we have less overtime. There comes a point in overtime where you're going to burn your people out. If you're going to save money, supposedly, by not filling 2-3 positions, and people are working continuous overtime, double shifts, 1.5 shifts, over and over and over. How long is it going to be before they say, you know what, I just can't take anymore, I hate this job, they get bitter, they get angry, and then you don't get the same work product. So you have to balance that out with what's best for the department as a whole, and what can we afford as overtime. I understand it may be cheaper to leave a couple positions open and pay overtime instead of benefits and things, but there comes a point when you start breaking the straw. And so you have to juggle that out. I'd rather have better mental health in my employees than everybody getting fatter checks. That's just the way I see it. So we can shave some of those things. I think we should look at part-time for transports and things and see what we can work out. Thank you.